Hello, peace be upon you all, dear angels of God. Welcome back for another episode of The Living Jesus. I'm your host, Saiha, and this is my co-host, Tiffany. Thank you so much for joining me today.
Thank you so much, Saiha. It's always a pleasure to be here with you.
I'm very excited for our next topic. Look, we believe that in every day and age, God puts the believers through tests. Okay, we believe that no believer in the history of creation has ever been left to say, I am a believer in God without being tested. So that is where the prophets and messengers come in. So for every single time a prophet and messenger came, they had different characteristics. They committed different mistakes. They looked different. They spoke different languages. They came with different revelations and certain adjustments to laws and jurisprudences, right? So with every one of these, that was a test for the believers to see if they're just saying, I believe in God and I believe in the previous prophet or messenger, or is it just a lie, right? So for every single generation, there is a guide and there's a set of tests, right? Yeah. And the tests are usually very similar, right? And that is the test of faith. So in order to really say, I am a Christian, you would have to believe in a messenger that is sent by Jesus Christ, like his successor Simon Peter and the disciples. You can't say I believe in Jesus if you after Jesus passed away and got resurrected and left the earth, reject the successors and the disciples, right? So this same rule applies. So today we're going to be asking, what kind of tests does God put the believers through in order to test their faith and make sure that they're not hypocrites?
Yeah, we're going to take a look at history. We're going to take a look at the big prophets and messengers who came with new covenants, those whose stories we're most familiar with, and we're going to take a look at what tests they came forward with and how the believers in their specific times were tested. And we're going to talk about Jesus and all that he said about testing, and this concept of testing and actually sifting is something that we find a lot in throughout the Bible, and we also find it in the narrations, specifically the narrations speaking about the time of the Mahdi or the Qaim, that actually the believers will go through a lot and they will be sifted, and purified until, and many people will come out through the sifting process, people who were not really true, sincere believers. So it's something that we have to take a look at. And yesterday we talked about the concept of predestination and free will. And, this is a good topic to talk about after, because after you have believed, it's not enough to simply say that you have believed. You have to prove that with your actions, not just with your words. So, I guess without further ado, we can jump into these topics. Before going forward, though, we would like to say that you can find out more about this topic in the Goal of the Wise. It's actually something that's written about in door number 38, the chapter about tests. So if you want to read this in full detail from Abu Sadiq, from him his peace, you can go to our website, theahmadireligion.org, and download the book for free.
And look, I think that, we're a people that believe in religion, but we also believe in science, right? So for us, the approach that we want to take with the Mahdi al-Sadiq, right, is not, can he prove himself? For us, the question is, can you disprove that he's not, that he's the Mahdi, right? So for every single claim that people have against Abu Sadiq, we actually found out that it's actually impossible to disprove him only purely based on these narrations and these stories of the previous prophets and messengers, right? So for us, this theory that we have is that it's not possible to disprove that Abu Sadiq is the Mahdi, right? Because every single question that is posed, against him, or every single claim that's against him, actually comes from believers in the previous prophets and messengers. So in order for them to say, well, the Mahdi, I didn't see him do any miracles, that person who is a Muslim, for example, automatically just confessed that he is a disbeliever in the prophet Job, you know, in the prophet Adam, in the other prophets, that there are no records of them performing any miracles, right? So they automatically become disbelievers just by uttering a rejection of Abu Sadiq for something that you know, they deem is not a proof of him. So today we're going to talk about that.
He has performed miracles, you know, so that wouldn't be applicable to him specifically. But I understand what you mean. Like, these stories of the prophets and the messengers, they're recorded for a reason, right? In order to teach us many things, and this is one of the things that we can learn from these stories, that you know, you cannot disqualify certain people based on certain things. And the test that the people were tested with in the time of Noah is the test of time and timing and patience. And this is certainly one that people bring up a lot, right? They bring up time frames, and they want that the Mahdi has done a certain set of things within a certain time frame. This isn't coming from narrations. There's no reason to say this, but people do say it. They say, like, you know, what have you accomplished? You know, where is your state? Things like this. There are many things to talk about in terms of accomplishments, but I'm just saying, if we take the prophet Noah, for example, I mean, he was certainly a test upon the people in his time for this specific reason. It's known from the religions of Judaism, Christianity, and Islam that the punishment didn't come down for a long time, right? Noah was calling his people for a very long time and telling them that the punishment was going to come and the people were going to be wiped out, and he was calling people to repent. So the specific number of years is not necessarily listed in the Holy Scriptures, but the narrations, they state that it was actually a period of over 900 years. Can you imagine? Over 900 years, that's really extremely lengthy.
Exactly, and especially, you know, considering all of the abuse and the oppression that Prophet Noah, peace be upon him, and his followers faced. You know, they were constantly for over 900 years, about 950 years, you know, they were abused. They were like on the verge of death.
It says
they were
Noah
oppressed
and bleeding and just left for days.
Exactly,
like that.
By all of the people around them and all of the tyrants. Imagine being oppressed and abused for 1,000 years. You know, calling the people to your ark that God already promised that he was going to, you know, save you if you board this ark. And then 950 years later, you're still sitting here and the punishment and the promise of God still didn't get fulfilled, right? So that was the believers when they knew about it. How about those people who call us and say, well, the Mahdi, how is he the Mahdi? Because the Mahdi is supposed to, you know, come in Mecca with his army, defeat his enemies, and then spread, you know, justice and equity through the earth. So you haven't done that yet. So that means that you're not the real Mahdi. So can you say that? You know, is that a reasonable reason to not believe in the Mahdi? And we're gonna find out from the story of Noah that actually that was one of the biggest tests and one of the harshest tests, to be honest, for the believers of Noah, right?
Yeah, absolutely. So according to the narrations, there was this story with the date palm tree, right? So he had the seed of the date and he was meant to plant it, and then as soon as the tree came to fruit and they ate the fruit from the tree, that's when the punishment was supposed to come down. But actually that's not what happened. Actually then he was told to plant that seed and then start over again. And this process, it didn't happen once or twice. According to the narrations, it happened actually 10 times, where the tree grew to adulthood and then fruited. And then that was when, I mean, this is what happened. Basically, the people were sifted, right? They fell into three different categories. Some people, they disbelieved because they considered it that it was an unfulfilled promise from Noah. So they considered him to be a false prophet and they apostated. And then there were people who were sort of shaky faith, you know, they stayed, but they weren't really sure. And then there were people who held firm, and this is the sifting process that happened every single time that it happened until only really his family members were left, and they actually said, we don't care if the punishment ever comes down, we just believe that you're truly from God, you know, and that's when it actually came down. So the lesson from this story is that God doesn't operate on human time frames, right? Like God can test people and he can prolong matters, and this doesn't mean that a messenger that he sent forward is not, you know, from God. We can't claim that we understand, God's methods or God's time frames. So this is one way that people are tested and they are sifted. And we find that sometimes people's faith, it weakens over time, and sometimes a matter is prolonged in order that people who are not true believers, fall out of the matter, and only the people who truly love the messenger of God and they have full faith that he is from God no matter what, those people remain firm.
Exactly. I mean, I think that this is not perhaps it is a foreign concept for the Muslims, but for the Christians, for sure, it's not, because there is actually a very popular verse from the Bible that says that do not say that God is slow, for what we consider slowness, right? But he says that he prolongs it so that not because he doesn't want anyone to perish. So I know this is a quote from Paul, I believe, but it is true in that case, in this scenario, because the Christians do believe in these verses, and it's a very popular one, it is the truth in that sense. Because yes, God for us maybe is like, hurry up and fulfill the promise that you made. But in reality, perhaps, if he goes ahead and fulfills the promise, maybe, when the people, who are evil, who are hypocrites, maybe they board the ark and then they go in the new world, and then they completely destroy the earth once again, and then make it into the hellfire it was in the first place. And then all of that work and all of the punishment, all of the wiping out of the people was for nothing, because then you might as well just stay in the state that you're in right now, because it's going to be the same, just times two the next time. So God, in his wisdom, that was one of the tests that Noah's people faced in order to sift them. Yeah. And the sifting process is not a new thing, and in Christianity, this is also included in one of the parables of Jesus, which is the very popular one about the parable of the 10 virgins, right?
Yes. Yeah.
So it's very. We can go ahead and read it if you want.
Sure.
At that time, the kingdom of heaven will be like 10 virgins who took their lamps and went out to meet the bridegroom. 5 of them were foolish, and 5 were wise. The foolish ones took their lamps but did not take any oil with them. The wise ones, however, took oil in jars along with the lamps. The bridegroom was a long time in coming, and they all became drowsy and fell asleep. At midnight the cry rang out, "Here's the bridegroom, come out to meet him." Then all the virgins woke up and trimmed their lamps. The foolish ones said to the wise, "Give us some of your oil. Our lamps are going out." "No," they replied, there may not be enough for both of us, and you, instead, go to those who sell oil and buy some for yourselves." But while they were on their way to buy the oil, the bridegroom arrived. The virgins who were ready went in with him to the wedding banquet, and the door was shut. Later the others also came. "Lord, Lord," they said, "open the door for us." But he replied, "Truly I tell you, I don't know you. Therefore keep watch, because you do not know the day or the hour." So God doesn't give us the time frame, but there's also going to be this waiting period, and Jesus already 2,000 years ago already told us that when the kingdom of heaven comes, right, there's going to be this period of waiting, and the foolish people who didn't prepare for that, who didn't have faith in their heart, they basically get shut out.
Like faith, right? So the faith is what you have to keep alive, while you're waiting, and not just get careless and let it fade out from your heart. And then when the time comes, that you don't have any faith left to light your lamp. So this is the big warning from this parable, and I think that it's really applicable to this day and age. It's absolutely applicable to this day and age, because the people, again, they're tested constantly with this, time frame and prolonging of a matter. So it's very important for people to keep in mind and have in mind that they always have to have a heart full of faith, and they have to constantly be like regenerating and checking their heart and making sure, that their faith is in the right place, and, that they're having full certitude, that they're not slacking and letting their heart grow cold, essentially.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, so look, this is already present in the parables of Jesus, so it's not a surprise that perhaps the divine just state might take a really long time. Maybe it's going to take 1,000 years. We don't know that. So the thing is that for us, are we, when we believe in the messenger, when we believe in the Mahdi, when we believe in the messenger from Jesus or from Muhammad or from all of the prophets and messengers, are we going to believe in him for some kind of reason? Only if you perform miracles, then otherwise you abandon him. Or, I will only believe if you establish the divine state in my lifetime.
Really true faith. Yeah,
it's not faith, then there's benefit. You're trying to look for something else other than God, other than the messenger, because the reason why God created us is to know him. That's our purpose, our entire life's purpose. Why we are here is to know God. So if we are busy running after the dunya, after the life of this world, we're not really caring about our purpose, our true purpose, which is to know him and to love him, right? So we can't possibly love God if we're only here for the miracles or for something else entirely.
Right, exactly. That would mean that you're truly not seeking God. There's a lack of sincerity in your heart. So,
exactly, and that is the foolish versions who didn't put oil in their lamps. It's the people who are hypocrites, who don't really care about God, but they care about some other benefit that God has, the messenger might have for them, because they don't really believe he's a messenger, but they just see that, maybe he's going to be a really great leader, so I'm going to go and hang out with him until he gives me like a powerful position in life, something like that. So this basically, the test of time is a very harsh one. It's a very difficult one, because it takes patience. And how many people can really say that they have the patience of Noah, who waited and preached and was abused for 950 years from the people, calling the people to this ark, telling them the punishment is going to come, and it never came for 950 years. That is extreme patience right there. And how many of us can say that we would be able to do that, except for the very sincere believers. Of course they could, because they're let's go to
you just reminded me of something. I saw a short earlier today where Abu Sadiq is speaking about the believers who are tested, and he said that the believers who are tested, they actually attain the rank of prophethood because they have that faith in God and that relationship with God. I found that to be like a really cool fact, and it just goes to show that the testing process is really important, and it draws people actually closer to God.
And now I think that we as human beings, we have something that the previous prophets perhaps didn't have. For example, the people of Noah, they didn't have all of this information. They didn't have all of these stories to go back to, right? They had to learn as they go, right? But now the majority of the people of the world, they can read and they can understand, and they are educated so that they can read these stories and actually learn from these lessons, and they have more of a chance to believe in the messenger and to follow him, no matter what clay they're made from, in order to achieve success and to achieve the rank and closeness to God. I think that that's a really great mercy, and time, for me, like as my personal opinion, and also I think as reality, is time, prolonging of time. I think it's a great mercy for the believers, because the believers still, like, even we need help, especially the disbelievers. The punishment for them, we don't want the punishment to come down for them, so as long as possible is better for us and for them.
More people have an opportunity to board the Ark of Salvation, and more people have the opportunity to hear about this call, and more people have the opportunity to come to God. So without that time, that mercy, you're absolutely right, it is a mercy for humanity.
And then let's go to test number 2, which is the test of Abraham. So in the time of Abraham, when he was here in the world, he also was a great test for the people of his time, right? So people who would say, I believe in God, they had to be tested by Abraham, and whatever it is that he brought, whatever test that he brought. And his test was dreams, traditional family, and blood relations.
So he was an example of that,
Yeah.
you know, he was a living example because he passed through these tests, right? So God, you know, he tested Abraham, and Abraham came out of the test as the friend of God. Abraham actually achieved that title, you know, of being the friend of God, because he proved that he wanted God only, you know, and he didn't place anything ahead of God, even that which was most precious to him. So I think this is a pretty famous story. I think most people are familiar with it. In the Bible, it's said that God, you know, tells Abraham in the book of Genesis, God tells Abraham to take his son and to sacrifice him. So it's written in Genesis 22 verse 2, then God said, take your son, your only son, whom you love, Isaac, and go to the region of Moriah. Sacrifice him there as a burnt offering on a mountain I will show you. So yeah, I mean, that's extremely heavy. And the Quran has the same story, but in the Quran, it's not even a voice that speaks to Abraham. It's actually a dream, right? So he has a dream where he's sacrificing his son. So he believes in this dream, right? He believes and he acts upon his dream. So that's a big test upon Abraham. And of course, the greatest part of this test is the fact that it's his own son, his beloved son, his son who God actually promised him, you know, and it was a big deal that he had this son. And according to the religion of Islam, actually, I mean, we don't need to get into whether it is Isaac or Ishmael, but just for the sake of speaking about what's written in the Bible, it's written that it's Isaac. But in the religion of Islam, it's known to be Ishmael or Ismail. But yes, this command that God gave Abraham, not only was it very difficult on a personal level, but actually it directly contradicted the law, right? It contradicted the law. So in the law given to Noah, it was actually forbidden. And this is in Genesis chapter 9, verse 6, that you can murder somebody, actually. It said that it's completely outlawed and forbidden. And we spoke about how that goes back to the first murder with Cain and Abel. God had to make it forbidden. So in the covenant with Noah, it was forbidden. So Abraham, not only, is he commanded to do something extremely personally difficult, it goes against the law of God that he is familiar with. And, you know, it is given to him in the form of a dream. So, wow. I mean, this is just a huge test. But he passes it. He shows that he's willing to do anything for God. He actually goes. And as we know, it was a miraculous ending to that story. There was substitution that took place. God commanded that he not sacrifice his son. But he proved in this story that he was willing to do anything. And actually, we know that he did go through quite a bit of hardship, because he had to leave behind his wife Hajar and his other son Ishmael, right? Like, he had to leave them behind. So we know that he was willing to put, not willing to put anything ahead of God. And this is exactly what we find in the Bible, in the New Testament of the Bible. And we find Jesus saying the exact same thing.
Exactly. You know? I mean, it's something that Abraham had to go through. So anybody now who believes in Jesus Christ and his coming has to also fit the same kind of, criteria. They also have to go through the similar test, right? Because how are they going to follow Jesus, if they themselves are not willing to sacrifice their own family and even their own selves, right? So, and this is a command. We find it in Matthew 10:37-39, where Jesus, he commands his people to also go through the same exact test that Abraham went through, which is to basically, I mean, not literally sacrifice your family, but
the same
kind of
experiment, like, the same,
where you have to choose God over your own family.
Exactly. You're not able to love anything more than God, or more than Jesus, actually. So it's written in Matthew 10:37-39. Anyone who loves their father or mother more than me is not worthy of me. Anyone who loves their son or daughter more than me is not worthy of me. Whoever does not take up their cross and follow me is not worthy of me. Whoever finds their life will lose it, and whoever loses their life for my sake will find it. So,
see, for me, it's so interesting, because we look at this verse, right? And then we see the doctrine of normal mainstream Christianity, and it's actually the other way around. It's like Jesus sacrificed himself for me, when he's the one who commands them, whoever doesn't sacrifice their life for me is not worthy of me. So it's actually the opposite.
Yeah,
like, it's point. Actually you are the one who's supposed to sacrifice your life for Jesus, so not the other way around.
The true test of belief is God first, and the one who was appointed by God, the one who God speaks through. You have to put that, figure and put God above all else, including the most precious, people to you, including your mother or your father or your brother or your sister or your child or anything. You cannot have anything ahead of God. And we actually find another story where people are coming up to Jesus and they're saying that your mother is here and your brothers are here. And Jesus, he looks at the believers who are with him, right? And he says, these are my mother and my brothers, because whoever does the will of my Father in heaven is my family. So we find that Jesus, he makes it very clear that this is an absolute must, and it all ties as well to the test that Abraham went through.
And for me, it's a little bit shocking, to be honest, to find out that there's so much judgment. Like, there are so many accusations for us, like personally, like personal attacks against the believers of the Mahdi, Abdullah, Hashim, Abu Sadiq, from Christians, like, and from Christian, like, countries and societies, right? That they condemn us, or they make fun of us, or mock us, or actually say that we're criminals simply because, like, for example, maybe I chose to come here over my family overseas, but then they're judging us for doing that Jesus himself commanded them to do. So they themselves are not willing to do it, but they're also barring other people from doing it and also mocking them for it. For me, this is like a Pharisee, to be honest. Like, I mean, I don't want to like insult anybody, but to be honest, like, if you are a Christian and you know the teachings of Jesus and you proudly, in the name of Jesus, condemning somebody for following the commandments of Jesus, for me, this is not like, this is kind of suspect, for me, this is not something that's coming from the mouth of a Christian, like, even if they label themselves as that. So that's a lesson for the Christians, because this is something that Jesus himself commanded. He told you to carry your cross and to give up your life for him, unless, otherwise, if you want to keep your life, you will lose it. So it's very interesting.
Fascinating choice of words. Whoever wants to keep their life will lose it.
I mean, it's as if Jesus, I feel like it's as if Jesus saw the future when his future so-called followers would be speaking and condemning his own messenger and his own messengers and his followers in the future. It's as if he knew the future and he knew that this was going to happen, and it's as if he's speaking directly to them.
Yeah, it absolutely is. It really, really is. Because as we know, I mean, there's no security in this world except through holding on to God, right? So whatever you think that you can hold on to, you actually can't, because in an instant it can be gone. The only true, the only thing in this world that is true is God and the one who he has appointed. So yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's just a really important reminder for all people, and specifically for believers, because, this is really the test upon the people who have said they believe, and then with their actions, they then have to show it. And we can't have anything in our heart more important to us than God.
Exactly. And that's, of course, not to say that we do like abandon our family. I mean, that's not the truth. But what we're saying is that even if that was the case, you wouldn't, as a Christian, be able to judge that or condemn that, because this is what Jesus told you to do. So if you're going to condemn another person for doing something that you aren't willing to do, even though Jesus told you to, then perhaps you should double check your faith and make sure that you actually believe in Jesus and you're not just using him as a way to get to heaven without actually obeying him, which is something that's in the Bible. Jesus commands you, if you are his disciple, if you want to be his disciple, you have to obey him. So if you are going to condemn somebody for obeying Jesus while claiming that you are a Christian, then, I mean, I have bad news for you. I think that you should repent, to be honest.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I think that that's well said. And I mean, the tests go on, right? The tests go on, and we can continue with the next prophet that we're going to speak about, and that's Moses. And this one's a really interesting one.
Yes.
The test of Moses is migration. And Moses, he, as we know, he famously commanded the Israelites to basically leave all that they had known behind and to follow him into the promised land. That was, what God had commanded him to go to the people and to command them to do. But Moses himself was a huge test on the people, right? Of course. Moses was absolutely not what they were expecting. They were expecting to be delivered. They were expecting that somebody comes and on behalf of God, and he frees them from the enslavement that they had been in for 400 years in Egypt. But they were not expecting Moses, and specifically Moses was very surprising to them because Moses was raised in the palace of the Pharaoh, right? So Moses, he was more in touch with the Egyptian ways and customs than the Israelite ways and customs. You know, he was basically adopted by the Egyptian people, and he was essentially seen as like a prince. This is something that's referenced in like the Midrash, that the people regarded him in that way. So this is really interesting because he wasn't what the people were expecting.
Exactly.
And this is really relevant to this day and age, right? Because what is written about the Mahdi? That he's not going to be what people are expecting, in the sense that he rises from the West, right?
Exactly.
So we see that that's a huge test on the people. The people are expecting that the Mahdi comes from the Kaaba, you know, that he's dressed like in this Islamic, you know, way.
Has a turban.
That he has a turban, you know, they're expecting him to represent the religion of Islam as they see it represented in the world today. Yeah. But the narrations don't point to that at all. In fact, they say that you have to go to him even if crawling over ice, right? Yeah. So you're commanded to migrate to him, like the people were commanded to migrate in the time of Moses.
There's no ice in Mecca, you know. That,
exactly.
You know, but and look, it's very obvious that you know, if you actually look at the fairy tales that were fed to you by the scholars, you will find out that there's a lot of fallacies, there's a lot of holes in the arguments that you have, and that's why we are looking at scripture and what the prophets and messengers actually said, and the stories of the prophets, so that you know for a fact what excuse you can use to not follow the messenger of God, and which ones you can't, right? Yeah. So one of these is migration. If the messenger tells you to migrate to another place, to leave your family, to leave what you know, the country that you know, the place that you know, the family that you know, in order to go and find another place, then you know, look at the story of Moses. Okay, Moses, he went up to the Pharaoh, you know, and he just tells him, hey, you know these 600,000 slaves that you have that are doing everything for you? Yeah, you're gonna let them go now because God commanded that I take them from you. Yeah. Okay, and these 600,000 people who only know the Pharaoh and Egypt and their life, now they have to believe in Moses, that he's a true prophet of God, but also take up their life and leave with him to this promised land that they know, they don't know what it is, they don't know where it is. He just said, trust me, I'm gonna take you there, and then they're in the wilderness, in the desert for 40 years,
not before roaming around, to enter into the sea, you know? And they had to, you know, have the faith in order to just like walk into the sea, and then it parted ways for them. I mean, they really had to go through quite a lot in their exodus of Egypt. But yeah, this is an incredible story, and it's important for everybody to keep in mind. I mean, God, he has plans sometimes, right? And he has promises, and he wants to give blessings to the people, to the believers, but they also have to take action, right? They have to have faith, and they have to do what he asks in order that they might help him, you know, help him to help them, basically, you know. So in this story of Moses, the people, they had to trust Moses, they had to believe in him, even though he was a test upon them in and of himself, and they had to follow him, you know, and believe in what God had promised them through him. So the story is really important, and it's quite an interesting story of a divine test.
Exactly. I mean, look, they had to leave their life and create this country, this promised land, go to this promised land. And then on top of that, like, there were so many obstacles to that. Like, imagine like these 600,000 people, like they go and then they go in the sea, you know, and it's the sea on one side, and then they have no boats. They don't know how to swim. They've lived in the desert.
The army coming,
yeah, and then the army of the Pharaoh is coming on this side, and imagine like the thoughts that these people were having. So this was a huge test. And then the promised land, like the majority of them died out. The generation already died out before they even got to the promised land. So imagine how much of a big test that is, the migration. But if they didn't leave with Moses and stayed in Egypt, where are they now? Are they in the promised land? Are they in heaven? Are they in paradise with God? No, of course not. So they still had to do it. They still had to believe in him and still had to migrate. They still had to go to the promised land and believe in him no matter what.
Yeah.
So the thing is that just because for you, you don't want to migrate, you want to stay in your life, it doesn't mean that you are a believer.
Yeah.
You have to go through the tests that the previous people had to go through, because this is the way of God. There's a verse in the Quran that says, do they think that they're going to be left to say we believe and not be tested?
Yeah.
So, and we can't just say, oh, I believe in Jesus and I love Jesus so much, but then not be tested with a Jesus of your time, with a person who is like him, who comes from God, who is your test in this era. Like
Jesus
because
himself
Jesus
was the same. So I mean, I think that we have to mention Jesus. He commanded people to carry their crosses, right, and follow him. So I mean, he also commanded the people to leave what they had behind and to follow him. And even if it meant carrying your cross, which essentially means knowing that you have nothing in this world, leaving it all behind and just going for God. So that's the message that he came with. And Jesus himself was a huge test on the people, and that just like Moses, he also wasn't what they were expecting, right? I mean, we have so many verses in the Bible where the people are like, wait a second, is that the Messiah? Isn't he the carpenter or the son of the carpenter? Aren't those his brothers? And he says that a prophet is not without honor except, in his hometown. And then there's also this verse in John where it's said that can anything good come out of Nazareth, right? Because Nazareth, where he was raised, although he was born in Bethlehem, he was raised in Nazareth, right? Nazareth had the reputation for being kind of lowly, right? And sort of being not an auspicious place to be born or to be raised in. So the people were, they were not impressed by his background and by his profession and how he looked. And, pretty much everything about him was not what they were expecting in terms of the Messiah, right? But that wasn't an excuse for them. They still had to believe in Jesus because God appointed Jesus. So no matter what package, the messenger of God comes to you in, you have no excuse. You have to believe in him if he proves himself in the, authenticated way, which Jesus did and which Abu Sadiq, from him his peace, has done so in this day and age. So, yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Okay, now let's look at the test of Jesus. Okay, there are so many. Of course, Jesus, he only had, even though now there's 2.6 billion people who are claiming the name of Jesus and they're saying we believe in Jesus, oh Lord Jesus. But in the time of Jesus, when he actually was living and present in his time, he only had 12 close disciples, and one of them betrayed him and sold him out for 30 pieces of silver.
Exactly.
30 pieces of silver.
Yeah.
So that's what happened with Jesus when he actually was there. So let's look at the test that he had to go through, and the test that he opposed on his imposed on his people, right?
Yeah.
There's many tests that I can think of that the people had to go through in order to really believe him and trust him that he's a true prophet of God. And one of them, right, was the fact that in their narrations, right, it says that whoever claims to be the Messiah, his life will be cut short, right? So whoever claims to be a prophet or Messiah
who is a false claimant,
exactly,
right?
who is a false claimant, his life will be cut short.
Exactly.
And then this person comes and he says that he's the Messiah, and then 3 years into his ministry, he gets crucified in the apparent. The people see him being crucified, and that's a huge test. It also goes against the kind of the narration or the tradition or the scripture of God or the law of God, right? Yeah. So the law of God says whoever claims it, I'm gonna kill him.
Yeah.
So in the apparent,
if they're not truly the figure.
Exactly.
Yeah. I mean, it was a huge test upon specifically his closest followers, right?
Yes.
Because we see that they were really surprised by what happened with the events of the crucifixion and what happened after. And actually, in a verse in Luke chapter 20. 22, we find that Jesus is referencing this. You know, he says, Simon, Simon, Satan has asked to sift all of you as wheat, but I have prayed for you, Simon, that your faith may not fail. And when you have turned back, strengthen your brothers. But he replied, Lord, I am ready to go with you to prison and to death. Jesus answered, I tell you, Peter, before the rooster crows today, you will deny me 3 times that you know me.
Wow.
And yeah, I mean, a lot is being said in this verse. I mean, it's very clear from the words of Jesus that, you know, Satan is trying, and he has wanted that the believers be tested and tried in order, you know, that they might be sifted. And Jesus is essentially saying, like, when you come back, you know, strengthen the others, but you're going to sort of momentarily fall. You're going to deny me. And we see in the Bible that this is actually what takes place. Yeah. He's shocked when Jesus is arrested, right? And afterwards he actually denies having known him. And I mean, it was a big test.
It's a really big test. And, you know, I feel like it resembles the story of Job closely, right? Because here we have Satan wanting to sift them and test them and accuse them, right, before God. Yeah. And this is exactly what Satan did to Job. Exactly. This is why, I mean, Job, he was a prophet of God, and he was the Jesus of his time, meaning that he was a prophet that they were obliged to believe in and obey. And this man lost all of his family, lost his wealth, lost everything he had, and also lost his health, to where, like, the people literally left him out in the garbage for dead, because they believed that God was angry with him, right? But it was all a test because of Satan, because Satan was the one who was, trying to test, Job in such severe, horrible, disgusting ways. And then in the apparent, the people saw a prophet who was punished by God, just like in the case of Jesus, where they believed, oh my God, he's not the real Messiah, because God cut off his life early. But in reality, it was actually Satan who was trying to sift the believers by testing them with such severe tests, like the one with Jesus.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's something that can be found in pretty much all, the da'was of the prophets and the messengers. The believers themselves become a test on other believers, right? So the disciples of Jesus and their faith became a test upon others. And it's something that we can find in every da'wah of every prophet and messenger. And it's a story that was preserved for a reason, right? So it is a big test, obviously, on the people when there are internal betrayals, when there are people who are close, like Judas Iscariot. He was extremely close to Jesus. He was one of his 12 closest companions. He betrayed him, and it led to this series of events where there was, intense testing upon the believers and the close ones of Jesus. But it's an important story to keep in mind.
So now, look, we went over some of them. Of course, please read door number 38. It's a really great chapter. It's full of amazing keys of knowledge and wisdom of God, divine knowledge and wisdom. But look, the bottom line is that, I mean, we can go over more of these.
There are so many.
There
and
are
from
very
the parables
many,
of Jesus, you find that they're all aligning, with all of these stories that Obsag from him, his piece is highlighted in the Goal of the Wise. Yeah,
exactly. Because, I mean, Jesus, he was the angel of revelation. He was Gabriel himself, and he's the one who revealed all of these revelations. He was the one being with the messengers, the prophets and messengers through these tests and through everything. So he's the one now who is giving these parables to the people, for them to learn from all of the stories of the prophets and messengers. And he was just doing it in the way of parables, right? So Jesus. So those reasons you cannot disbelieve in the messenger, even if you are judging him for those things. So thank you very much. I hope that this was a beneficial conversation for you. I hope that it gave you a lot to think about. Thank you so much for joining me today, Tiffany. It's a very interesting, very fascinating topic, and I hope to see you again the next time.
God bless you all. We'll see you tomorrow.